Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the special council meeting, August 30th. Did I receive regrets? I haven't received regrets. Have you received regrets? Okay. Councillor Donaldson is absent, but I don't remember seeing any regrets from him. So, invitation to stand, as we always say, and anytime if you feel like you're tired of sitting, just stand and move around. There's an agenda. Anybody have anything to add? Did yours get added, Councillor Dodgemo? Oh, you're not going to add it to this one. Okay. So if there's nothing to add, you have something to add?
I'd like to add mosquitoes.
You want to add mosquitoes?
Add mosquitoes to the agenda for the meeting to enjoy, for us to enjoy.
That's denied.
Yeah. Only has you have some off. 2 cans of off with the agenda. Well, would you like to put that?
Yes.
At what place would you like to put that?
Community grant.
Is that for decision? Is that for
Excuse me.
for decision?
For decision?
Or for discussion?
For discussion.
For discussion. Okay. And that would be under, for decision and discussion, I guess, under 6G. So the agenda stands approved as amended. Conflict of interest. Does anybody have any conflict of interest to declare? And if you do have a conflict, you can always declare it when the item comes up. Adoption of minutes. We have the August 1st, 2023 special council meeting. The minutes are attached. Are there any errors or omissions? You've all had a chance to read them. If there's no errors or omissions, the minutes stand approved as presented. For decision and discussion, first reading, bylaw 40, regional emergency management. There's an attachment. Go ahead, Chantal.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just to let council know that these are just some minor changes that have been sent down from the province to align with the Emergency Management Act and the Municipal Government Act. Ourselves, the town of Yarmouth, and the municipality of the district of Yarmouth have all had to go through the exact same changes. So this is just getting the ball rolling so that the bylaw matches what the Emergency Management Act says.
Okay. But we need a motion to approve the first reading. Okay, moved by Councillor Digdon, seconded by Deputy Warden. Any discussion? Hearing none. Motion stands approved. Letter of support for organizations for New Horizon Grant. I think some of these were already sent to or through emails. And we have one for Twin Village Social Club. And I do believe that was one that was kind of approved, but it's good to have a motion now to approve these to make them legal anyway. So if someone wants to move a Councillor Surratt, seconded by Councillor Boudreau, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Tourism Committee for Historic Chapel Site. I think that's another one that we've seen. So we would need a motion for that one.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Dontremo, seconded by Deputy Warden. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Ladies Auxiliary of the West Pimlico Fire Department, again, moved by Councillor Digdon, seconded by Councillor Dontremo. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. This other one, Committee des Aînés de la Région d'Argyle. That one, I'm not sure that was sent as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was a late one that we received.
Yes.
So we just added it on to the list of organizations that were requesting a letter of support. They're planning to put in an application for the New Horizon grant and would like a letter of support for the municipality. Just going by memory here, I think they're planning to do different events for seniors in different areas in the municipality. I think
Yes.
basically that's the background around this.
It's for the areas, I was talking to Mr. LeBlanc on that, and it's the areas that have senior groups. It will be to help them to have some kind of a like maybe raise a flag for Acadians or whatever, right? And any other halls or whatever that may not have a group, there could be less of a fund going to them, but it's to make sure that all the seniors have the opportunity without spending their own money. So he's applying for that. So we would need a motion for the letter of support.
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Saunier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. And Wetchborden District Fire Protection Association rate confirmation. These rates have all been approved anyway during our budget.
Yeah, this one's a bit of an exception, Mr. Chair, because they actually hadn't reached the end of their rate at the end of the year.
Okay.
So they had an area rate meeting last year that they confirmed this year, which is different, but it's a legit meeting and it was
Yes.
legitimately done. So they're looking to extend the 7-cent rate for an additional period of time, which is stated in the letter. I think it's 7 years it's 7 cents for
7 cents.
7 cents
Per
for 6
100.
years. So I would suggest a motion to support the letter. They are aggressively looking at getting a new piece of equipment and they need confirmation from the bank. We had no intentions of not collecting the 7 cents. It's just they got ahead of it. They got ahead of the game a little bit
Yes.
by asking us in year 5 of 7 as opposed to the last year. So
Okay.
that's why it's being done now.
Yes. Okay, so we need a motion for that. Moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Saunier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Service exchange, RFP. And that would, I would pass that on to our CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that under normal circumstances, I drone on and on about RFDs. And I think in this case, I would prefer just to start by saying that most councillors, if not all, have attended a consultation session and have seen the RFD in advance. They have received ample information either from NSFM or from myself. And so rather than go through the recommendations or the logic, I would just simply start with what are council's concerns and questions around the shared service agreement. Are there sticky points? Are there areas that we should be talking about here? So I'll defer any sort of presentation and answer questions that may be in the presentation, but I'll do my best to help you along.
Okay. So are there any questions, any discussion on that? I see Deputy Warden.
Thank you. I read the RFD more than one time, but I'm not going to lie. The roads section is really tricky for me. I don't know if I'm 100% clear on what all of that means.
Would you like me to get into it?
I would. Just
Okay.
that section. The others were, I felt,
straightforward?
yeah, but the road section, I read it and just, I still had a lot of I'm not sure what that means and I'm not sure what that means.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I have a similar feeling about the roads for a variety of reasons. We're not in the business of roads, so we don't really know that line of business as much as maybe other lines of business. So the other things, as you correctly pointed out, are mostly just the province absorbs this cost. The province absorbs this cost. The province is giving you a different calculation for equalization grants. So all of those things I think are generally accepted by most municipalities. I won't say all because you can never get all. On the roads question, I will say that there's two streams. One of them I don't even talk about because it has almost entirely to do with towns, and it has to do with additional funding for arterial roads. So those are like the on-ramps that come into the town, or off-ramps that come into the town. Those traditionally were paid 100% by the towns because they are responsible for their own roads. Now what the province is saying is we're going to cover 50% of that. That's a big deal for towns. Most towns are very, very thankful for this because they don't have any funding option other than, town grants and other types of revenue. So I didn't address it in the RFD because it really has nothing to do with you as a rural. What has everything to do with you is the fact that the province of Nova Scotia is putting together a voluntary plan. I say voluntary. There is no obligation on any part for any municipality to entertain this
So
part.
things for us would stay as they are right now.
If you choose not to participate, it would not change a thing for you. So I guess the question is, what does participation mean? What does it give us, right? What it gives us is, I would call the road question an intervention issue. So before, the only intervention that the municipalities had around road repair or recapitalization, repaving, whatever, the only thing you had was a 50-50 cost share, which we have done once in 18 years. And I recall the discussion, and it had to do with either Riverside Drive or Birch Drive. It was at the Green Acres spot, and it was requested by a couple of owners on that location, and we submitted an application for cost sharing. So what that basically means is, okay, province, you have a list of things that you have to do. Under this program, we can apply to speed up that particular project. And why do we speed it up? Because we pay for half. That's the reason, right? So that the province they'll take their time, and they have this much money. But if they had this much money, they may add more things. And what you're saying is we are picking this road to do more. That budget across the province was $2 million. We have applied once or twice, and we have received funding once for about 50,000. I think it was 100,000 total project. And it wasn't even a kilometer's worth, but it was re-chip seal, right? It was redo, and they did an excellent job. They didn't do the whole road, but they did what we asked them to do. So that's the only option you had to intervene in what I would call a local road. So it's important to understand that local roads don't include highways, don't include Highway 308 or 344 or any of those, any like side roads to highways, and all of those roads. Those are all considered, and will continue to be considered, provincial roads, or even in some cases Trans-Canada Highway, though I don't think we see that in our corner. That has nothing to do, this is local roads. So when I say local roads, I'm talking about Bailing Lane. I'm talking about Rockall Point Road. I'm talking about Slocum Crescent. These are like side roads in each of your communities that we have a long list of all of them. And I assure you, we have the list of all of them. There are 4 types that they are looking at right now. H, I, J, no, G, H, I, and J. Okay. So G is G and J are probably your top local roads. They're built for high density, usually paved. G and J. I'm not sure why they didn't go in the order, but it's G and J. H and I are usually dirt or like lower used roads. So you might have like a side road into a couple of driveways. I can think of a couple in Pubnico that come to mind, right? So some of those side roads are maybe a little they're not well maintained, but they are maintained. K is not a part of this conversation, but it's a non-maintained provincial owned road. And I know that we've seen this in the past where somebody has looked to construct on a K road thinking it was a J, and all of a sudden, they build a house and there's no services. And they're like, oh crap, this is a problem. So we've seen that happen to some of our residents in the past. Again, K is outside of the scope of what they're talking about, so we don't talk about that. Total road for G, H, I, and J is 264 kilometers for the municipality of Argyle. And while that sounds like a lot, we're the 5th smallest in Nova Scotia. The highest is like 15, almost 1,600 kilometers. CBRM's at 860 kilometers. So the larger the unit, the most likely you have more of these roads. Now, what does that all mean? It just means that before I just described that there was $2 million for J that's the only program that existed. So what they're doing is they're expanding it, but they're making it, it has different rules. So now it's not just J, it's G, H, I, and J. And so again, voluntary, but it's up to you as council whether you want to intervene. So to intervene means you want something done faster, you may or may not get permission, because the province is the one that decides whether or not it fits within their budget. Their budget will go from 2 to 10 million per year. So it's more roads, but there's more money. An intervention is one of 3 options. The biggest option would be the same kind of process you would set up for J-Class. Every year they would say, oh, applications are open for any roads that you wish to intervene in. So it doesn't mean that on a J-Class application that it won't be fixed. It doesn't mean that. It means you want it fixed sooner. That's what it means. So in the new system, there's a bit of a wrinkle. It is that, except that what they want to do is pass on the ownership of those roads. That's a big change from the previous, right? So so there's three options here, and I'm going to pull it up just to be sure that I get it right, because sometimes I get it wrong. The first one's the easiest, which is you apply for a road, Rocco Point. I'm just going to use Rocco Point Road as an example because I know it's a local road, and you want it re-gravelled. Now that's already been done, so it's a bad example. So it's merely for illustration. So you want it re-gravelled, and you put that on your application. The province accepts it in that year, or they don't. Let's assume that they do accept it. All of a sudden, it becomes part of their list of things to do. And once they complete it, you will pay half of that re-graveling. So this is pave to pave. This is gravel to gravel. Whatever the condition of that road, it is to maintain that same condition. So if it's a paved road, it's repave. If it's a dirt road, it's re-dirt or re-gravel. Okay, so it's not an improvement or a decrease in the road quality. It is to maintain or reset the quality. If that's the case, you pay for half and you own it after. So this is the province's way of moving local roads into ownership into municipal units. That is, if you choose to do so, because you don't have to. So you could choose to just say, we're never going to do this ever. And that's the end of it. That the challenge of the council will be to defend your decision against residents who may want you to intervene. That's the challenge. Now you don't have an option. There is no option to own a local road, but there will be if this goes through. So, so that's an example. That's one of the 3 examples. That's the most typical example of a road takeover. Now, what the province is saying is that they will give you money to maintain that road. Okay, so it isn't just about 50-50 split, because now you own it. Before, you never owned it before, so they would continue to maintain it. They would continue to absorb that cost. Now, because you own it, you will be absorbing the cost of maintenance. What is that cost? It depends. It depends how much you want to maintain the road. Some people say we're going to plow every 24 hours, or like it's going to be 24 hours, so they have that, or it's black to black, like at the airport. You're taking out snow, and it snows a little bit, you're taking it out again. So depending on how high your service is, your maintenance could be 12, 13,000 a kilometer, or it could be 5 to 7 a kilometer, depending on how much maintenance you're looking for. Okay, so
So when it comes to plowing,
yes.
would it be?
You put your-
Sure.
Yeah, so that,
When it comes to plowing, it wouldn't be Department of Transportation plowing? Would it be us plowing?
In the instance where they would pay us for maintenance, it would be us. Okay. There may be the possibility that they would continue to maintain that road. You would have to pay them for that because you now own the road. Right. So you're like contracting them to do it. How much would that be? I'm not sure. I think usually they have done this, and it's a case by case basis. It depends on the local department. Under normal circumstances, they might charge you $8,000 a year to maintain that road. And so you'd get an extra bill that you never had before, but you don't have to worry about maintenance. It's done for you. But it would be done at their policy. It wouldn't be done at yours. So you're accepting that, they're going to get there when they get there, and that's the end of it. So that's your standard intervention. I'm going to stop there because you might have questions about that. And then I will go into the other two, which will be less likely, but I'll stop there because this is going to be your most common situation.
That's right. I see Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I ended up being, I guess, not feeling well last week, so I ended up watching 4 or 5 of those meetings. As far as the roads, I guess, in all fairness, there's a lot of answers that the Department of Highways themselves couldn't give as far as the roads, so they're not sure how it's going to work out yet. As far as the plowing, if we decide to take over a road and we're going to have Department of Highways plow it for us, they made it very clear that they'd only be able to plow it if they have the staff and plows available. So I wrote down things, I listened to things, I touched base with Alain a couple of times about this. I guess overall the agreement seems pretty good, except for this road bit that nobody's quite sure about yet. There's a lot of unanswered questions as to what may happen or may not happen in the road bit. And the only other thing I was gonna ask Alain if he would, or a CAO, if he'd give a quick definition, I guess, or what this service exchange really is, if like there's people watching,
Right.
what it's about. And
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to do that now, or would you like to field other questions first?
Well, there's
I can do my best to answer that now, or there are other
Go ahead.
people. Or it's up to you.
well, I have 2 more people that wanted to ask questions, and maybe some of them will relate.
Great.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Councillor Surratt, you're next.
Yep. You want me to ask now?
Yeah, ask now.
Oh, okay, myself, I was gonna say, it would be crazy to take over a road. In my opinion, from what I've understood from what you explained, I had read that, but, and I understood a lot of it, but the way you explained it, yeah, you're right. It seems to me, let's leave it like it is. There could be situations where we'd want to, which could be what's, because there's a lot of people staying there, they're not being serviced by the highways, and council could feel maybe we should step into this. Did this be one instance that you could? But otherwise, I wouldn't want to touch it.
Right. That would be a perfect illustration.
Yeah.
That you are unsatisfied and your residents are very unsatisfied with the way that road is being plowed. So, and that happens. It happens every year. And you get those complaints, and what you do is you say, call this number and put pressure on them. And it's not always, and so there's 2 things going on there. There's one is that they have staff limitations, they can only do what they can do, but there's also residential expectations that may or may not be reasonable. Like maybe they feel like it should be done right away. Maybe that's their feeling. Maybe that's true. Maybe it isn't. But you would be feeling those questions. You would be feeling that pressure because of doing that. So then, but if you do that, what would happen is if you're unsatisfied, I'm just going through the logic here. If you're unsatisfied with the service, and that's the reason why you would take over a road, you're unlikely to then go and hire them to maintain it.
That's it.
You're going to hire yourself to maintain that road. Now, the province has provided money to support you if that is your decision. They will give you upwards of $12,000 per kilometer per year in order to assist you with the maintenance of that road. So that you wouldn't be without funding support for doing that. But I mean, presumably you're going to take over a road. Like you said, you'd be foolish to just take over a road for nothing. So if the reason is that the service isn't good enough, then it means you're now on the hook to provide a better service. Absolutely. And we're not currently equipped for that. No. We are equipped. We've got a plow and we've got a truck and we plow our own, but like we own literally less than a kilometer of roads. So we would not be, it would take us a while to get ourselves into that mode. And so I would say that would be probably your motivation there. You couldn't do it a lot. No. Because you just, the more you do that, the more maintenance is required. I forgot to mention that you do pay a maintenance fee to the province today, and you pay about 6,200 a kilometer for about 7 kilometers. I think you're closing in on $50,000 a year that you pay them to maintain certain amount of roads, 7 kilometers or something like that. What they're saying is we will repay you for maintenance until that number gets to 0. And then after that,
Okay,
they're not assuring you more maintenance.
you're on your own.
So for me, there would be no financial motivation for a council to take over more than the amount of roads that you'd be paid for to bring your maintenance to 0.
0. That's
Like
right.
once you hit 0, why would you take over another road? So for you, it's probably 3.5 kilometers.
Yeah.
And I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot when you say 264, but a lot of roads are really short. Like you could actually own quite, in theory, you could own like little short roads and you
Yeah,
could
yeah.
maintain those. It wouldn't be a big deal. But 3.5 kilometers is about half. It's about half of the total that you already pay for. And what they're saying is we'll pay you 2 for 1. So for every kilometer you take, we'll pay you twice the amount you pay us for maintenance. So the mathematician will say you divide the amount of kilometers in half, and that's the amount of kilometers you could take over and still receive maintenance for. After that, I don't have an answer.
I get it. I
Right.
get it. That's good. Thank you.
I haven't forgotten. So, this is, a healthy level of paranoia. I won't hurt anyone.
Councillor Sonia.
Thank you. I have more comments and questions, and I agree with what Councillor Surratt and Councillor Dickon were saying. What I got out of that meeting was that the minister is unsure what's going on himself, and just by that alone makes me uneasy and unsure. But I look at our roads, and we have a problem to have them graded. We have a problem to get our ditches cleaned. We have a problem with the brush. And, all along when they were talking about, ownership and doing all this stuff, I'm thinking, buy a new grader, add some more men to the force and do what the people are asking for, to fix the roads that are existing, that are not fixed now. So at this point in time, I don't have enough information to actually vote yes or no, but I would, because of that, I would vote no, just like Councillor Surratt. Yeah, so that's the only comment I have. Thank you.
Councillor D'Entremont.
I was just thinking, and again, just, listening to the conversation, trying to decipher all of this. It's kind of complex, really. But CAMU said that we obviously don't have the manpower or the equipment, but, scenario could be contracting, private companies to do it. In the past, what I've seen when you compare, government to private usually gets it done, So, but I don't know what the price you have to pay. That's the thing.
That information I don't have, but
Yeah.
you're quite right. It wouldn't have to be done by us, and even if it was done by us, it doesn't mean you're alone. I mean, if everybody's in the same boat, you might find yourself in a situation where multiple units are either providing or buying the service for a region. That all those things are possible. It is far too early to know what that might look like, and we're not in the position to voluntarily enter any of this. And there are unanswered questions. I will say that the recommendations do come from the Roads Committee, which was a joint committee of municipal administrators and provincial. So it did come well thought out, I think. But the devil's in the details. So when you start looking at it, you start asking questions about, well, what about this or what about that? And we didn't have a solid answer for a lot of these. And so they're like, we'll get back to you. So it might mean that the province just pulls that off of what they bring to legislature, because it's half-baked. It's not fully fleshed out. They may do that. And as you can see I would not endorse the road section, but I don't see any reason why that should get in the way of the other items that they have presented. And I think the province deserves to hear both the pros and the negative and the positives. Like, so if we're supportive, then we should be supportive, because they hear a lot of negativity um, from maybe louder organizations, or maybe more organized around, advocacy or whatever. But there's a lot of small units here that are benefiting from the other recommendations, which I will get into.
Yes. And before you get to that, since we're on roads, I'm going to add that they've increased the amount to 10,000 or 10 million. However, when you're starting to pave roads, and we're still, it doesn't change the amount. We still have to pay 50%, whether they've put 20 million or 10 million or whatever. When they do a job, we still have to pay 50%, which is what we're paying now for the J class. Start paving a road, and it won't take long to chew up a big amount, and then we have to own it. And I know we don't have the equipment, and some of these roads would need more equipment than just our four-wheel drives that we have. And if you're talking about gravel roads, you can't grade a road with these half tons. You got to have a grader, and so there's so many things to look at before we even. But the one thing about that is, it's optional.
That's correct.
It's optional. We don't have to, right? But there could be pressure from the public for us if they know that if we decide to pay half of that, it will get done sooner. There could be pressure from the public for us. Okay, look, you have an option here, right? So anyway, there's a cost to this, and it wouldn't take long for what we're going to be saving on the other parts of this agreement. Wouldn't take long, or not saving, but gaining, I should say. It wouldn't take long to spend what we're gaining on these road maintenance, and not maintenance, but to before we even take it over. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I had to say, and Alain, if you want to,
I will address the question of
yes,
Digdon.
to kind of go over what else is included.
I will say that if their budget is 10 million, what they said was to pave 1 kilometer would cost, on a local road, would cost about $375,000 a kilometer. Since you're cost sharing 50%, your cost would be 187,500. That is 53 kilometers a year if they were to pave as many kilometers as their money would allow it. That's nothing if you think about it from a provincial perspective. So this is not intended to replace what they're doing. It's never been intended to do that. This is really like, it's putting a little bit more power in council's hands to take some of this on themselves. I will say this, that the savings that we receive on the other items, which I'm going to talk about in a second, would be offset entirely if you paved 1 kilometer. If you paved 1 kilometer, all the savings that you had out of your housing and corrections and all the adjustments that they're suggesting, I'm excluding schools, and I'm excluding application-based capital. I'm just saying the cost eliminations, the cost avoidance that are going to them, and the recalculated equalization grant will get you about $180,000 a year, and it'll cost you that for 1 kilometer. Okay, so just so that you know, that's the magnitude of the roads equation. I can go in the other options for roads, but if you're not interested in option 1, you're certainly not going to be that interested in knowing options 2 and 3. One of them is, and it really, but I will say that it does put some pressure on you if you are looking at a downgrade. If you are looking at a paved road in Pubnico, and and the government says there's really not enough traffic for this to continue to be paved, we are not going to repave it. We're going to downgrade it to gravel. So your elected official from Pubnico, elected officials, may have a problem with that.
Yeah.
And if they're successful in bringing that to council, which I would assume that you would bring it to council because it's a big deal. And let's assume that council says, we can't have that. We agree with you. They would submit to the province and say, no, you're not going to gravel. You're going to stay paved. So if the province, again, the province has to approve that. If they may say, nope. And if they say, nope, it's game over, right? But if they say yup, it means that, and I'll read it, replacing pave with gravel based on reduced, sorry, let me try this again. For instance, replacing pave with gravel based on reduced traffic and demand. Once notified, the municipality has the option to disagree and assist on maintaining that level of service. Should the province approve, they will maintain the same level, i.e. repave that road in a cost-shared environment, but the ownership shall remain with the province. As the maintenance and ownership remains with the province, there will be no maintenance grant provided. So if you are insisting on a level of service, that doesn't mean you would take over the road. It means that if they agree, you still have to pay for half, but they will continue to maintain and own that road. The opposite is not true. The opposite is triggered through an application that the municipality is requesting an upgrade. So take that same example in West Pubnico. You have a gravel and they're going to replace it in gravel, or they're going to do nothing. And you're like, you know what? We want that paved. We want it paved. The province will pay for the whole thing, but it's yours forever. Okay? So in that case, it's like, you want it, you got it. You know, like my father used to say, I pay, I say. Like, you want to say, you have to pay. So that's the three scenarios. So I went through the both of those rather quickly, because that is something that would be a lot less common. The other elements on the shared service that I'm going to address, that address to Councillor Digdon's question, has to do with additional revenues and elimination of costs. And when I say elimination of costs, it means that the cost will no longer be a municipal responsibility. It will be a provincial responsibility. Doesn't mean the costs disappear. It's just that somebody else is paying for it. So the cost eliminations are on mandatory payments. We have 4 types of mandatory payments to the province, 2 of which are big, 2 of which are smaller. The province is recommending that the 2 smaller ones be absorbed by the province. They have no intention of increasing property or any sort of taxes provincially, so they're basically sucking those costs into their budget coffers with no additional cost to the resident as charged by them. When I take housing and corrections together, corrections is $110,000 a year for you, that it disappears, and about $50,000 for housing disappear. So it's about $160,000. The other like unknown advantage is the fact that these numbers are only going to go up, especially housing. They are prioritizing housing, and when I say housing, this is affordable housing, funded provincial housing, like Tri-County Housing Authority and like the housing unit in Tuscot. Those are examples of like it's a subsidized environment of home. So they would then absorb 100% of those costs. So we would avoid $50,000 a year, and I would suggest it probably go up to $60,000 or $70,000 a year if it stayed with us. So it's future escalation avoidance, and it's also cost avoidance. That's about $160,000 a year. And then every year we would get an equalization grant. We got the same amount every year forever. They changed the calculation. We're going to get about $25,000 to $28,000 more per year. It's not a big increase, but most of this grant goes to one unit. 45% of it goes to CBRM. So any sort of like changes to funding to that is going to be very, very good for them and maybe not so good for everybody else. So the decision that the province, the decision they made, and I don't mean that they meant that they made it to be counter to CBRM, what they were trying to do is be as inclusive as possible. So they decided not to add any more money into that pot of equalization. But what they did say is, and as you know, if you change a calculation and you never change the money, somebody wins and somebody loses. So as it turns out, they will top up all the losers to get exactly the same amount that they got last year for 5 years. So if you lost 50,000, it's going to come back to you for 5 years. So you have 5 years as a municipality to plan what you're going to do with that loss over 5 years. So it's a lot of time to plan for something. And I think the biggest loser is probably CBRM, because the biggest winner would have been CBRM. And so they're struggling with this, I'm sure. That being said, the good news for them is that they are avoiding massive housing and correctional costs. So like the net benefit for us is almost 200,000. The net benefit for CBRM is 2.9 million per year. So as you can see, and I'm taking our size and I'm comparing it to the largest municipality that we have that is part of this deal. Keep in mind, HRM is not part of this deal. They are not part of this deal. This is everyone but. So, so I'm just showing like there is money being put on the table here to help municipalities. There is an acknowledgement from the province that we are paying too much for things that we have no business paying for. There are a couple other elements I would make mention for the listener. One is that there is a new capital grant of $15 million a year that will be provided as an application-based grant. So if we don't apply, we're not going to get anything. And the design is to increase our percentage on a project, or decrease, sorry, from 25% to 0. So it's designed to support projects that we might be successful at the federal level. Let's say we have a $10 million project, and the federal government's, or let's use a lower number, a $2 million project, and the federal government is willing to pay $1 million. It's usually 50% of the project. Typically under these arrangements, 25% the province would pay, leaving 25% for yourselves. The design of this grant is that you would apply, and if you were successful, you would pay nothing. Your 25% would disappear. So then it would be a 50-50 job. You benefit from the improvement, but you don't pay any capital. So that it may not be new money to in the sense that there's always money available to support projects like this. There's provinces always having to spend money to support federal programs, but there's no program like this. This would bring you to 0. And I can assure you that on big projects, that's a big deal. So it's new money. It's an annual 15 million. Is it enough? No, it's never enough, right? But 15 times 5 is 75 million over 5 years. It's going to do something, right? So I say, that's a good improvement. Some may have wanted more, but good, don't throw out good with the hopes of great. So I think that there's that. And then finally, I would say this was the big one, is the schools. The surplus schools, which we own 3 currently, and a school bus garage. Those pre-1982 schools will be taken over by the province. End of story. And what we know is that that's a cost avoidance of between $550,000 and $700,000 a pop, because they're built with everything that's bad. I mean, they may as well be built by with candy. It's like asbestos, lead, and like oil, like everything bad that you could possibly imagine they use to build these schools. So we're usually left with, well, can we change it to housing? What can we do? And it's like infested with gross stuff that we don't want to deal with. So the province is just taking those over. And if you want them, you can still have them, but they're really taking away, in my opinion, a significant liability. So I think that's the extent of all of the recommendations coming from the province. It is slanted to helping municipalities, and I think that was done intentionally. But it's still called a shared service. So it seems good now, but then the other shoe may still fall, and we don't know what will happen. The other thing they have said is that in 5 years they are going to be renegotiating this, and I think that's a very positive thing, because our situation isn't going to get any better. So it's best to have a conversation with them to negotiate a better deal potentially in 5 years. The last shared service agreement that was signed was 1995. That was not 5 years ago. So that was a lot of talking.
Any other questions? So, sorry, Councillor Bork.
Sorry, for one more question about they mentioned about J-class that will be ended. There'll be no J-class roads anymore. So can you just clarify on that?
It's the capital cost share program.
Okay.
So that one ends and a new one begins.
Right.
So that one is J-class only 2 million. The new one is 10 million GHINJ. So it still means you can get cost funding on J. It's just now it's part of a broader program.
But we would own it. We would take ownership,
In
the J.
in
the
Right,
new
example,
right,
in the
right.
in the typical example that I would set, that is the major difference between
Right.
the old one and the new one.
Exactly.
So why don't we just wait next 5 years, see what they've got, you coming, see what happens there.
Well, and my recommendations are to endorse all the recommendations but one, which is the road one. Like, can you get us more information on that? But even if you were like forced to take them all or nothing, like even if you were forced to do that, I would endorse it because just voluntary. Like, don't do it. Don't do it for
No
5
matter
years.
what.
Like,
Right.
you know, it's just don't do it because it's your choice. It just puts a little bit more political pressure on you as councillors to make a decision. But you know, I know that Councillor Saunier would call us a yes council, but on this one we may have to be a no council. It's not always easy to say no, right? And so the more local the issue, the harder it is to say no. It's very easy to say no sitting in an ivory tower somewhere in Bedford, compared to sitting at the Tittle, you know, and having your neighbor knocking on your door, right? So it's a very big difference. So I don't want to minimize the fact that this will put more political pressure on you if it goes through the way that it is. I honestly believe that they will make changes to it because we've pointed out a major flaw in the maintenance side of things, which
Yeah.
is highlighted in
Because they
the
had mentioned that if they did the maintenance on the roads like winter time, or it costs around in the $8,000 range. They had mentioned that, so it's quite a bit.
It is.
Comparing to 6,100.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Saunier.
Thank you. In terms of obsolete schools, I just for the record, I'd like to thank our CAO because he had, I think, pre-arranged through Colton LeBlanc, I believe, with a letter that would have disposed of the Wedgeport School without costing us a dime. And now the policy is for the provincial government to take care of all these schools. But it makes our CAO's effort no less grateful, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, so at this point, we got to make a decision here now that we endorse part of it, if we're allowed to endorse part of it. Is that,
I mean, the recommendation that I'm proposing is that you endorse all recommendations but one proposed by the provincial SEMGAR committee combined, and encourage provincial approval at the fall sitting of legislature, but that we request additional clarity on the purpose and application of local road recommendations prior to the endorsement.
and that would be done by motion here
Yeah.
today?
And yes, and I think that motion's appropriate because we still have time between now and the fall sitting. If they
Yes.
give us the information that we're satisfied with, we might want to endorse all of them as a council.
Right, exactly.
And we still have time for that. So this is just giving them the feedback. They're asking us to give them feedback on this consultation. This is our way of saying
Which
it.
is, okay.
And you know, if they don't like what we have to say, that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's wise to be cautious on the roads.
Exactly. And I agree for 100%. So we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, moved by Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Surratt. Any further discussion on this? Councillor Digdon.
Just very short, what our CAO said about if they don't like it, at least they can see where we're heading. And that's one thing I found very good during all the sessions. They were very forthcoming with answers. They respected each decision of each municipality and each person speaking. And it seemed like it was a combined effort for everyone to work together in this. It wasn't just like, okay, here's what we've drawn out for you people. We want you to accept it. It seemed like a great working relationship amongst everybody in those rooms.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Saunier.
Just for clarification, what is the motion again?
You read it there. It's.
Would you like me to reread it?
Yeah, reread it.
That council, and well, I'm going to put the suggested motion, actually, my recommendation is different. The council requests additional clarity of purpose and application of the road's recommendations as proposed in the shared service agreement prior to endorsement. Further, the council endorses all of the recommendations proposed by the province of Nova Scotia as the first phase of a long-term shared service agreement and encourages the province to present those recommendations in the fall sitting of legislature.
Okay.
So just on that motion, I know it's been seconded, I want to highlight the importance of them bringing this to the fall legislature. Because if they don't, then we have to look at other options. So the first one is spring. Spring legislature is budget.
Yeah.
So you don't always get what you want from provincial legislature, especially in the years that are coming here with budgets. And like, I'm sure the province is very, very focused on budget in the spring. In the fall, so there's that. So even if they were to look at it and accept it then, it may come into play April 1st, May. If the fall legislature was successful and they said, yes, this sounds like a good deal, it is almost a 100% probability that this would apply to you next year, April 1st. So with all the time that goes by, keep in mind, it's $200,000 for us per year. Each year that goes by is a different year. So there's that. So let's just assume that we brought it to spring. That didn't work out because they prioritized other things, which they're gonna prioritize, like education, housing, health. Like municipalities are never going to beat those top three. So, and the budget is big. So, okay, so then we go into the fall. What happens in the fall of 2024? Municipal election. So are they going to want to bring this kind of thing to the potential of a new council and all these new things? Probably not, right? And then we go into the next spring. Well, guess what? Election, provincial election is in that year. So you're really sticking yourself if you're not able to bring this to fall legislature. I say it's the province that has to do it. But for you to encourage that to happen, I think puts a feather in their cap to say, let's go. Many times what municipalities do, if they're not sure what's going on, they say, slow down. But this has been going on for if I count all the other things that we tried to do, it's been going on for 15, 18 years. But this particular negotiation has been going on for like a year and a half. And so it's not time necessarily to slow down. It's time to get going and then keep going. And I guess that's more of an opinion than it is a fact.
Okay. So if there's no other questions or comments, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. Now I have to backtrack here because somehow I skipped a couple of items. Item C, new member for Mariner Center Board. There's an attachment, and I see Chantal is asking to speak.
All right. So I sent this to you guys in an email shortly before the meeting. So my sincerest apologies. The agenda item has been there for a bit, but the memo was not. So I sent you an email with the memo outlining that when the intermunicipal agreement for the Mariner Center was signed, there was a couple of new things that needed to be done. Like there needs to be another member appointed to the Mariner Center Management Board. Currently, Glenn Digdon sits on that board. So we're looking for another one on that board. And then there also needs to be a nominating committee, which would be, it would have two elected officials that are not on the board currently. And they meet basically once a year. Alan can correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be for the recruitment of non-elected citizen members for the Mariner Center Management Board. So it would be to replace not to replace all of them, but when the time comes, they would be the board that is responsible for replacing those people. So basically what I have proposed to you today is, knowing that this was presented very short notice, you have the option to table this until the next meeting to think about it. But if you want to make nominations today, that is totally your choice as well. So I leave it to you guys, but that's just my little bit of information. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Councillor Surratt.
Yes, for the rest of council, I'm certainly interested to go on the board, if nobody else is interested, but I'm just put my name in the pot, just if there's some more. Thank you.
Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. Just a question. So there's going to be two counselors on the management board. Could they also be the two counselors that could nominate for representatives on the Mariner Center nominating committee?
So the intermunicipal agreement is very clear that it has to be two different members
Okay.
that do not sit on the management board.
So what is the wish of council? We've had one councillor say that he would put his name forward. Do we want to table this and wait, or do we accept, do we nominate a member and elect someone here right now? So we need a motion. We need someone for nominating. Councillor Boudreau.
I'd be willing to go on the nominating committee.
No, right now, what we're doing is just for the, not the nominating committee, but we want to know if we want to nominate the councillor to sit on the board.
Oh,
as our
I'm
second
sorry.
As our
I'm-
second councillor.
Okay, I thought you were looking for people for the nominating committee as well.
So we have Deputy Warden.
Yep, I would nominate Councillor Surratt for the Mariner Centre Management Board.
And we need a seconder. Okay, it's moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded. So Councillor Surratt, you are now sitting on the board of the Mariner Centre. Now, for the nominating committee, we can do that now.
Yep.
So, Councillor Boudreau, you mentioned that you would sit on the nominating committee, and is that just one member of our council, or two as well? So we have Councillor Boudreau, who's has said that he would sit on there. Councillor D'Entremont.
I will nominate Councillor Boudreau to the Marin Center nominating committee.
Okay. Okay. So we could do one now, and if we don't have two, then we could do the second one at a whatever. But if we don't have, at least we can do one. So it's been moved and seconded that Councillor Boudreau. Oh.
No, I'm just I'd like to get through this first motion.
Okay, because we have Councillor Boudreau nominated as sitting on the nominating committee for the public members. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded. So Councillor Boudreau, you are now on the nominating committee when the time comes. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Councillor Saulnier to the nominating committee as well.
Second.
It's moved and seconded.
All right.
Councillor Sonia hasn't come up, so I'm going to have to ask him if he's willing. So he is okay. So it moved and seconded that Councillor Sonia will be the second nominating member. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. So we now have our member and we have our two nominating member. So I have one more, and it's letter of support, play on, and that's Deputy Warden.
Thank you. So I was asked to be on the organizing committee for Play On, for Canada Play On. So do you remember a few years ago, we had the Redwood Cup, the street hockey tournament? Well, this is not as big of a scale as that, but it is a similar type of activity that there's a committee that's trying to organize this to come to Yarmouth for next year. So they have, they're in the works of putting an application through, and they're looking for letters of support at this time. So this doesn't commit us to any funding, but they will come to us for funding. But this letter is it's kind of like when we did our Mariner Centre application and we needed letters of support from the community in order for them to add to their application. That's kind of what they're looking for right now. So they asked me if I would bring it to council. The municipality of Yarmouth has given a letter of support, as well as the town. And they've reached out to the MLA, they've reached out to Zach Churchill as well. So they're looking for as many letters of support as possible. Are there any questions?
Councillor D'Entremont.
I was just wondering, was Yasta
Yasta
informed?
is involved. Yeah.
Okay, great, perfect.
So you make that
I'll make that a
a
motion.
motion? It's moved and seconded for a letter of support for Play On. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. And the last one, we don't want to go to service exchange again. I know, we have Guy wants to bring in mosquitoes.
He doesn't want to, they already have come in.
I'd be asked if we could get grant money to buy off. Well, no, the reason I'm bringing this up, I know we've discussed it before, but I've had over 50 either phone calls or messages at people on the street, and it's not only from my area, it's from, I would say, all over the municipality of Argyle about the mosquito situation. Everybody says every year this is the worst year, but I mean, I know we've had a lot of rain, but it's just terrible. It's, we've got tourists at our little rental. We've got people that are there. They've come for a week. They'll send a message to us, enjoy the place, everything. But the bugs are terrible. And we've got people out there. They're there for a month now. They bought some stuff, nets, and I don't know what. I'm hearing from people, that you're locals. There's one that phoned me up and said, I can't even get my grandson to come and play on the deck anymore. It's just, I mean, we all know how bad it is, but it's not getting better. And I'm just wondering what the other councillors are hearing. It's getting to the point where your tourism is affected, your quality of life is being affected. I'm just wondering where can we go? Is there a place we can go with this? Could we go, one person, a couple from Mirasol suggested we used to burn marshes. I know on the report, I've still got it on my file, the report that we've got from the Housey University that said that these were marsh mosquitoes. They determined that type of mosquitoes that we've got in our area come from the marshes. They used to burn marshes years ago. Is that an option we could, to the Department of Natural Resources, ask if this could be done? I know there might be some pushback about some flowers or something that's 1 in a million in our area, and that might stop us from burning. Is there any idea that we could get from natural resources of what to do? Is there money in a budget somewhere this year? Because it's not good. It's affecting our way of life, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm just wondering what you're hearing. If you're hearing anything, I know I've been told if I could get rid of mosquitoes, you're next to God. You'll be elected forever. But it's affecting our way of life. And I'm even thinking of, can we even go the way the mountain did? Because during that Alain and Colton had investigated, and Mountain has done something. I don't know if it's been 15 or 20 years they're doing it. Huge cost. Can we afford it? Can't we afford it? I've done a little private survey of people from Tuscan down. 50 people is not a whole lot of people. But I said, what about if we had $75, $100 on your taxes? Would you pay that if we had a program that would help us maybe, get rid of some of the mosquitoes or help the situation? Most said yes. Some of the seniors said, we have enough to pay. We'll never be able to afford that. I don't go outside that much. I know it's a controversial thing, and could we have a public meeting? Could we, because it's not good out there, and it's not only, especially this year, it's not only, Hubbard's Point to Morris Island. I'm hearing from people from Westport, I'm hearing Pubnico. Pubnico, it's not often that you hear about mosquitoes in Pubnico, but this year it's been worse from what I've been told, anyhow, from some of the people. So I'm just wondering if you're hearing anything, any of the councillors, or if you had any suggestions. I told people I'd bring it up at council. So I'm bringing it up.
Councillor Saunier.
Thank you. I've been hearing just about everything you've said, so it's the same everywhere, home, everything. In terms of burning marshes, I had mentioned that before, people just take it upon themselves for whatever reason. I don't know if it was for getting good marsh air or what it was, but they were burning marshes. And there are some people that swore by that, and at that time, I didn't realize or didn't know that there was such a thing as saltwater mosquitoes, and that they travel further than the average mosquito, apparently. So with the forest fires we've had, burning marshes would be a tough one. I'm almost before it. I don't know what it would do to the ecology if you tried to sanction that. But you certainly would have to have some kind of regulations and fire departments on standby if you did do so. There's a lot of marsh to burn, you know. But at some point when they did burn the marshes, I know down in Plymouth, there was a few people that swear by it. They said it did help. So that's about as much as I know.
Ted, okay, you're familiar with the Tuscan Islands. You've been there and whatever. Is that a place that is known to have mosquitoes? I thought I pressed it. I guess I didn't.
No, there's not a lot of, there's no marshland.
Well,
Yeah, this is very.
I
few
know
ponds.
someone who just went to the Tuscan Islands this week, and they couldn't stand it outside on the islands.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked, is that something that was normal for that area?
There are marshlands on the backside of Big Tuscan Island.
But there were mosquitoes.
yeah.
Apparently they
I
couldn't.
would say that's,
Yeah.
they're going too far now.
Somebody told me that they were there and
Yeah.
it was wicked. So I don't know what the solution is. I know
I'm not looking for a solution out
it's
here, but
bad.
I'm just
I know.
want the discussion. I said I'd bring it up to
Yeah.
council. If there's, anything anybody can think of or have heard of or.
Councillor Boudreau.
Yeah, going back to the Tuscan Islands, I remember years ago, we'd go at a camp, there'd be no mosquitoes. Now, there's mosquitoes everywhere. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And just want to make a comment that one of my friends, my brother-in-law, I guess, he says every time you go out, you can hear the mosquitoes coming through the fog. So it's pretty bad.
That's good. You hear them coming.
You can hear them coming. Yeah.
Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I personally haven't been hearing about a big increase in mosquitoes down home this year. Not saying there's not. When you were mentioning burning, I Googled, like Per Albany would say, I Googled, and according to Google, it does not show no big significant benefits of burning. And I think, in all fairness, this has been a really hard year to find out if there is an increasing mosquito problem or not, just because they've had a great year as far as breeding and that everything's been good there for them. Lots of rain, lots of standing water, and a few nice days. And it seems like every time you've got, and this has definitely been one of the worst summers for that in history. Like a lot of people don't. A lot of the senior people that I speak to down home don't ever remember a summer with this much rain. And so I don't know. But I don't know if we as a municipality would want to take on a project that big or pass it off to the provincial government to see, if it's just, I know we do have a lot of marshland up in this municipality. And I don't know if it wouldn't be something like that Department of Environment or whatever, or whoever that takes care of their, that would ever, excuse me, that it would fall under what department mosquitoes would fall under, but see if they couldn't help us.
I know
don't know.
when Colton had looked at it, was it a couple of years ago? 3 years ago, maybe? I know he said it would take an awful lot of convincing from the provincial government to try to get cabinet on board to do something for just a specific
Yeah.
area. It would be very hard. He didn't say it was impossible. He said it would be very hard
Yeah.
to get anybody on board.
And you got to realize that it covers a big area in the municipality. You can't just pick an area and say, we're going to do this for that area. You start doing that, and then you're going to, because you can't remove the mosquitoes from Abrams River and expect Sluice Point to say, oh, good, they did it in Abrams River, right?
Yeah.
It's a problem. It's a problem right through the province, right through the municipality, and not just our municipality, I'm sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
You know what? Some people said that they said, well, we spend our, I was talking about to the people, your taxes, taxes would have to go up. It has to be paid by someone. And I said, what about the areas that don't have it? Well, some said, well, we've supported the sidewalks, in some areas, and we don't have sidewalks here, so we paid our share at other places, so why wouldn't they share with us? I said, you bring a great point. But I said, it's a good argument. But, it's hard. It's not an easy thing.
It's an issue, and if we get rid of the mosquitoes, what's next? The ticks. How do you get rid of the ticks? And how, you know what I mean? Like, it's nature, and it's difficult
You have to live with it almost, yeah.
comes.
Municipality of Argyle and no fly zone.
We could have that, exactly. Yeah.
What can I say?
Glenn, you got the answer, Glenn.
Councillor Sonia.
I forgot to mention that maybe I think everybody's noticed the lack of swallows and purple martins. We used to have rows upon rows of these birds on the clotheslines and telephone lines, and they do feed on mosquitoes and bugs, and there was tons of them everywhere. Didn't matter where you went. And bats. There's a lot less.
Oh,
now.
there's
So I'm
no
wondering
bats.
that in trying to find a solution, maybe we should have someone look into why the natural predators are so, decimated. Why they are making a comeback.
Yeah.
Slowly.
They are.
And maybe if we put up cages everywhere, or you know what I mean, not cages, sorry, but birdhouses, and you never know. And bat houses, that might be a solution to this.
Yeah.
And I think it can't hurt. It's gonna help in some way for sure.
Yeah. I know. I've seen more swallows this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never seen them this fat.
But you've never. Something in
They
the
hardly fly.
Yeah, they couldn't fly. They were walking on the ground. Councillor D'Artmont.
I guess Councillor Sonia beat me to the punch, but I was like Per Albany with Google. What eats the most mosquitoes? Specific species which eat the most mosquitoes are purple martins, red-eyed vireos, chirping swallows, goes on and on. How many mosquitoes are killed by bats? One bat can catch up to 1,000 mosquito-sized insects in a single hour. So bats are primary predator of a vast number of insects at night. Doesn't say just mosquitoes, but that's probably leaning in the right direction. How to achieve that is another thing. But anyway, ecologically, maybe would make sense. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Correspondence. Strategic plan. Who's taking this one on?
Go ahead.
Chantal.
No, pass it on. Oh, me go ahead? Okay, we're good. So the strategic plan you guys have already passed back in, I want to say December, you already passed it.
Yeah.
So basically I was tasked with making it pretty, and that's what I did. So I'm just presenting it to
Okay.
you for that. If CAO Muse has anything else to add, I will let him, but that's just what I did.
So that's all it's for.
And it's pretty.
It is pretty. You may brag.
It's more for your information because we will be putting it out. There'll be a pretty detailed form as well, but this one will be what you'll see in some of your social media stuff. So it's more for your information.
Okay. Next is financial requests. There's none at this time. Agenda topics for next meeting or notice of motion by councilors. Seeing none, do we have anything in question period? No questions. So we have an in-camera session and motion moved to, it's been moved to go into camera.